You're going to hop into a real money fantasy football draft. This is going to be a little bit different. This is going to be a private draft with everybody a part of the live stream. So I think this is going to be a better overall look because it's not going to be a tournament style best ball draft for you to have a good idea of what your actual fantasy football draft is going to look like this upcoming season. Here, you don't only care about weeks 15, 16, and 17, trying to chase that highest ceiling possible. Here, it does matter the actual production that you have in your starting lineup through the course of the season, and it's going to be a balanced payout structure where first place, second place, and third place gets paid. There's not a small percentage of every league pot in a massive tournament being set aside for the tournament at the very end of the season. So this is going to be a little bit of a different draft, like I said, and I'm going to be excited to get this going because we have not done one of these private drafts with people in the live stream in a very long time, but this will be something that we are doing often going forward because I'm about to max out Best Ball Mania. But if you want to go ahead and hop into our next draft with us, make sure you go to the link in the description, go to the link in the live chat, go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. When you sign up for Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK, you can A, hop into these drafts with us in the live stream, which will be a ton of fun. B, on top of this, you are going to get a 100% deposit match, and you're going to get our 2022 rankings, our 2022 dynasty rankings, our dynasty rookie rankings. You are going to support this channel, so please make sure you take advantage of that. And here we don't have to just worry about upside. Let's go ahead, let's take a player that has a very high floor as well. Let's take Cooper Kupp at pick 3. And yes, before the Baker Mayfield trade, I was taking Cooper Kupp over Christian McCaffrey. I think that's wrong now that you have Baker coming over to Carolina. I think if you're looking at the floor and ceiling combination that you're going to have from Christian McCaffrey, if he can stay healthy, I do agree. I think you have to take CMC over Cooper Kupp at this point, but I'll be completely fine taking Kupp here at pick 3. Honestly, kind of happy about it for this format. Then afterwards, we have Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, and Austin Eckler off the board. Here, we have not drafted with a couple of these names in quite a while. Happy to see Girthquake out here. See Girthquake a ton in the chat, but not necessarily in these drafts. We have Scantron out as well. Dave, Dragon Isles. Have not seen Dragon Isles out in a long time. But thank you, of course, for everybody coming out and deciding to spend their, what is this, Thursday night with us. Y'all know I appreciate y'all. And oh my gosh, I just pulled up the live chat. We have over 100 people in here already. Good. Thank you, guys, for coming out. Thank you so much. And of course, if you have not dropped a like on the live stream, if you have not gone down there, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you fix that ASAP. But we just sent out that poll. After Austin Eckler, you have Derrick Henry, Najee Harris, and Dalvin Cook. A very standard draft so far. I would say really the only surprise up until this point would probably be the Stephon Diggs selection at 6. I am personally going to be taking Diggs whenever it's going to be that massive tournament style, just given the fact that we want to be trying to lean a little bit more running back heavy late, shooting for those guys like an Alexander Madison that could swing things where wide receivers in that range don't necessarily have it in their range of outcomes. But that's going to be in the tournament style draft. When it's just going to be in this 12-team league, I may just want to go out there and load up on some players like Derrick Henry, like Austin Eckler, like a Najee Harris, like a Dalvin Cook, that are going to be putting up a ridiculous amount of points every single week with a very high floor as well. Derek asking if we are going to do another Best Ball Mania draft after this. I want to get Best Ball Mania drafts going on the live stream, but I have like 20 left. So while the puppy drafts are closed, when I'm at the gym, my brain's broken. I literally have to be in a draft like at all times today. Like, my brain is legitimately broken at this point. So I want to have the option to be able to hop in some tournaments whenever I'm off the live stream. So I think I may have to save my last like 20 spots for drafts off the stream and just go ahead and do private drafts with y'all in the live stream. Because I know we've had a ton of people sign up for Underdog Fantasy, use promo code FLOCK, so they got a 100% deposit match and they can fire up these drafts with us. So we are probably going to go ahead and try to get more private drafts going, at least for the time being. But let's take Leonard Fournette here, pick 22. Looking at Leonard Fournette, he's going to have a massive target share here in Tampa. I mean, he had, I believe, 6 targets a game last year, and an offense that had Antonio Brown, that had Rob Gronkowski, that had Chris Godwin for the entire season. And now, considering the fact that you're not going to have Antonio Brown and Rob Gronkowski, who led this offense in yards per route run last year, and you're going to have Godwin missing the first 6 weeks of the season, Fournette should be a player that starts off very hot. In these 12-team private drafts, your points in weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4 matter just as much as your points in weeks 14, 15, 16, and 17. So it's going to be a little bit of a different strategy for us whenever we are in these drafts compared to Best Ball Mania. So let's go ahead. Let's get players that have very high floors. Let's go ahead and let's grab Javonte Williams as well as our running back 2 here. Javonte, not necessarily someone I'm taking in this range in Best Ball Mania. I actually had a draft this morning that you're not going to believe me on this one. It was one of the craziest drafts I've had in a while. But we had Austin Eckler, I believe, falling to us at pick 11. Then we had, I think, Najee Harris following up in the second. And then we had Javonte Williams making it to us at the 311. I had never seen that. Never seen that. But Nick coming out with a donation. Thank you, my man. Says, Diggs or A.J. Brown in a PPR dynasty format. I'm a huge contender. I think based on the age, you probably need to go A.J. Brown. But obviously, if you're a contending roster, Stephon Diggs is going to be a lot more appealing in that context. Okay, but Kamara goes pick 31. Now, y'all know with Alvin Kamara, I've been on record saying in Best Ball Mania, in those massive tournament styles where there's that heavy payout structure to the very top, where we're trying to chase top 1 percentile outcomes, where we're trying to chase just production in those final 3 weeks. In that context, hell, I'm completely fine taking Alvin Kamara here in the middle of the third. In this private draft, however, those guys that are going to give you that production, that elite level ceiling at the end of the season, but potentially miss the beginning of the year, the Alvin Kamara, the Chris Godwin, the DeAndre Hopkins, the Jameson Williams, the Michael Gallup, the Deshaun Watson, those guys that maybe have elite level ceilings at the very end of the season that we want to be loading up on in Best Ball Mania in those massive tournaments. Here, I have them completely crossed off my board. I have no interest in those players whatsoever. So personally, I think in this format, you have to go ahead. You have to take James Conner over Alvin Kamara. Don't even really think about it either. Young Glim says, how can I get in the next draft, Mason? Okay, I'm assuming you're already signed up for Underdog. And we will probably try to fire up another private draft after this. We'll keep it very simple. If this live stream gets 200 likes, we'll fire up another private draft after this. And what you're going to see, and this is what's going to happen going forward in live streams, is I'm going to set up a new draft board. You're not going to run to Best Ball Mania to join. And I will literally just send the link in the live chat saying $10 private draft, $3 private draft, whatever we decide to do. I will clarify in the live chat the buy-in amount. I will send it and you can go just join directly for that link and it will take you to the 12-team league that we are going to host. Dre coming out with a donation. Thank you, my man. Says, that time of the year again. Yes, sir. You know, we are firing these up every single day. I just have so much fun when we do this. But Cortland Sutton goes at pick 40. Michael Pittman Jr. pick 37. So those are our players falling according to their ADP past where they would go into, say, a regular public draft room. But you're drafting with people a part of the flock here. I think collectively we are probably going to be a little bit lower on someone like Cortland Sutton, where we are going to be higher on DJ Moore. So in this draft, you're going to see DJ Moore go over Sutton, possibly Waddle, Deontay Johnson as well. But Jerry Jeudy goes pick 42. Let's pull this up here. Ezekiel Elliott off the board, pick 43. Blind Luck Poker says he already has over 170 drafts on Underdog. Dear God, let me know in the chat how many drafts y'all have done this offseason. I think we've had over 300. If you include the Superflex drafts, I've had over 300 drafts this offseason. Okay, so George Kittle goes pick 44. Interesting. I think Kittle's maybe a little bit less appealing in this format for me. Cam Akers off the board. Good. We needed a wide receiver here. I think Terry McLaurin's going to be the easy selection for us. And then Steven says, Mason, do you pick Godwin as a wide receiver 3 over a quarterback in round 7? So if we are looking at Best Ball Mania, as I've already discussed, where really weeks 15, 16, and 17 are going to be overweighted in the importance, in the expected value of those 3 weeks in the production with what it's worth during that stretch. There, hell yes, I'm going to take Chris Godwin round 7. I'm not going to think about it. In this private draft, however, where it's only myself and these 11 other managers, and there's no tournament at the end. There's no playoff system at the end. It's just who scores the most points weeks 1 through 17. They're missing out on Godwin. It's going to be a lot more costly if Godwin misses the first month of the season. So I probably would not take Godwin here. Caden says, when are you getting get on the Justin Jefferson over Cooper Kupp train? I will admit, I think that there is I don't want to say strong argument, but there's an argument to be made to go ahead and to take Justin Jefferson over Cooper Kupp. Now, personally, I am not going to be doing that. Personally, I can't pull the trigger on Justin Jefferson there. But if you look at the yards per route run for Jefferson, if you look at the consistency that he had over the past 2 seasons, if you look at the fact that Kevin O'Connell will probably push the pace of play and also turn this into a more pass-happy offense overall, I'll admit there may be an argument to go Jefferson over Kupp. I personally can't do it just given the fact that Kupp put up a ridiculous amount of production last year. So let's go ahead. Let's take Lamar. It is what it is. We're going to go Lamar Jackson here at the beginning of the 5th. I actually wrote Lamar Jackson's chapter in our draft guide earlier this morning. Let me pull this up, and I am so happy that I have finished this draft guide now. Now, if you've ordered the draft guide, if you pre-ordered it, I'm sorry, the editor's still working on it. I had a couple chapters that they still need to look over. So once the editor has it completed, which hopefully will be by the end of this week, if you pre-order the draft guide, yes, you were supposed to get it in early August. No, you are not getting it in early August. I'm sending it to you way before then. Hopefully you can have that draft guide by Monday, by the start of next week. Okay. But it's nice now that I have this done because here I take Lamar Jackson. I'm able to just go to our draft guide, Control F. It's over 230 pages of quality information. It scrolls all the way down here to the Lamar Jackson chapter. And we all remember Lamar Jackson. He has an elite ceiling, right? I mean, we know he was the quarterback 1 in 2019. Everybody remembers that. But do you remember how good Lamar Jackson was? Truly. Do you remember how special that season was? Because what I can do is I can go over to RotoViz real quick and I can look up since the year 2000 quarterback scoring from a points per game standpoint and to see who the leader was. The number 1 season that we have had since the year 2000 in quarterback scoring on a points per game basis, Lamar Jackson in 2019. This beats Peyton Manning in 2013. This Peyton Manning season where the man went out there and had 5,400 passing yards and 55 passing touchdowns. Let me repeat that. Peyton Manning, who had 5,400 passing yards and 55 passing touchdowns through 16 weeks. Lamar Jackson averaged more points than that guy in 2019. Lamar Jackson averaged more points than 2011 Aaron Rodgers, than 2018 Patrick Mahomes, than 2010 Michael Vick. Like, it's absurd to look at this. It is absurd to see the true ceiling that you have from Lamar Jackson. I think it's in the range of outcomes for Lamar to be the quarterback 1 this upcoming season. He also had his personal career record set this past season in passing yards per game, passing attempts per game. They should go ahead and go back to being a more run-heavy team now that they're going to get J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, as well as multiple defensive key players back. But still, I'm fine drafting Lamar Jackson round 5. Hazy coming out of the donation. Thank you so much. Says, just got offered the 108 for Mike Evans in a Dynasty 12-team PPR Superflex format. Would you recommend trading him now or hold until the regular season and hopefully get more out of him? I'm rebuilding. If you're rebuilding, I would go ahead. I would maybe ask for a 2nd-round pick, see if you can get the 2nd-round pick on top of it. But if you're looking at that 108 selection, at 108, you're going to have someone like Chris Olave there. We can assume that at this point, some running back, maybe it's James Cook, ends up going a little bit too early. We know that people are very excited about Jameson Williams. I do think you could have Chris Olave falling to you, and obviously Mike Evans has it in his range of outcomes to be the wide receiver 1 overall for the first, say, month of the season whenever you don't have Chris Godwin there. But long-term, if you're a rebuilding roster, I would rather not roll the dice. I would rather just go ahead, take the 108, reset the clock with Godwin. I mean, Olave. Okay. Now, after we take Lamar, we have a couple other quarterbacks going off the board with Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts. Now, trust me, if I thought we could get Jalen Hurts or Kyler Murray making it back to us here at the end of the 6th round, I would have gone ahead and I would have taken DK Metcalf at pick 51, but I know the people we're drafting with. These are people a part of the flock. These are people that are going to be excited to grab those elite level quarterbacks, so didn't want to roll the dice. I was like, okay, y'all are going to get your guys. Let me just take Lamar here. We have a little bit of a wide receiver run happening as well. Chris Godwin goes at pick 60. I talked about this already, but in that regular tournament best ball draft where everything's on the line, weeks 15, 16, 17, hell yes, draft Chris Godwin here. But in these private drafts where it's just cumulative scoring, where there's not that emphasis on weeks 15, 16, and 17, and having just the highest ceiling possible during that stretch, I am personally probably just going to prefer passing on Godwin, given the fact that he could miss the beginning of the season. Dragon Isles on the clock. Dragon Isles, unique start. They've gone Chase, Debo, Hollywood Brown, Gabriel Davis at wide receiver, and then at tight end, they have George Kittle as well. So they've yet to take a running back. I wonder if they decide to grab their first guy here. I mean, if you're sitting at pick 68, no, they do not decide to grab a running back. Instead, they go ahead and they take Joe Burrow to get that stack with Jamar Chase. Interesting. Now, we are on the clock. Devontae Smith's off. I got to do it, right? I think this is an easy selection at this point. We're going to go ahead. We're going to take Elijah Mitchell, pick 70. No, with Elijah Mitchell, I'm not ecstatic about this selection. There are definitely red flags, considering the fact that Kyle Shanahan just churns through these running backs. I mean, let me go through, and it's so nice to have this draft guy done and pretty much have too much information on any NFL player that you were going to find drafted in fantasy football drafts. So let's run over to this draft guide. Let's search up Elijah Mitchell so I can tell you about Kyle Shanahan's usage of running backs over the past, Kyle Shanahan came to San Francisco in 2017. But let's search this and then also fire up our next pick here. Okay. Maybe we were going to go back-to-back running back. Hawkinson goes at 73. That is definitely before his ADP, but I mean, I think you could make the argument that Hawkinson's going to be undervalued here. And then Michael Thomas goes 74. You know what we're going to do? Do we take... We're going to take Antonio Gibson. Here, I think if we were playing in that tournament style, we would go ahead and we would take a wide receiver. But I think the receiver position is not necessarily going to be as valuable in this given format compared to what it would be in Best Ball Mania or one of the puppy drafts. So let's go Antonio Gibson, pick 75, our fourth running back. We're still going to draft another running back here. 100% going to draft another running back, considering this is just going to be a private draft. And then if we go back to Elijah Mitchell, on our draft guide, we have the running backs that led the 49ers in rushing yards since Kyle Shanahan came in as the head coach for this team. Carlos Hyde, 2017. Matt Breida, 2018. Tevin Coleman, 2019. Jeff Wilson, 2020. Elijah Mitchell, 2021. That is concerning. That is why you get a rookie running back who averaged 100 total yards a game, literally exactly 100 total yards a game his rookie season, going later than where he finished last year. Elijah Mitchell last season finishes the running back 15 on a points per game basis. Here we're getting him as a low end running back 2, getting him at the 6-7 turn. I'm going to be fine with Elijah Mitchell at this price point. Dominic coming out says Trey Sermon 2022 time. I'm sorry, my man. I don't think it's going to be Sermon. I think if you want to make an argument that it's going to be someone other than Elijah Mitchell, hell, you can easily make that argument, but it's not Sermon. It's Tyrion Davis-Price. I think that would be the running back if Elijah Mitchell wasn't the full-time player going forward, but we'll see. We'll see. Now, if I thought we could have got Tom Brady making him back to us in the 8th, I would have gone ahead and I would have taken Russell Gage. That was actually the other player I was considering, going back to what we've discussed in Best Ball Mania, whenever you're looking at a massive emphasis just for the very end of the season. There in Best Ball Mania, hell no, I'm not going to consider Russell Gage in this range because I think with Russell Gage, he's going to front load the majority of his production this upcoming season. I'm looking for players that are going to back load it. But here in this private draft, we just want points. A point in week 1 is worth just as much in this draft as a point in week 17. So I actually really like Russell Gage in this format. I really like Russell Gage with where he goes at pick 78. Kenneth Walker. Did they shorten Kenneth Walker's name? This definitely just happened, right? Swear to God, I drafted Kenneth Walker earlier this morning and said Kenneth Walker. Why does it say Ken Walker now? Did that just happen? Okay, so Kadarius Toney goes pick 87. Now let's pull this back around. At this point, we do want wide receivers making it back to us. I mean, this is a team that we went very running back heavy with to start. We have Leonard Fournette, Javonte Williams, Elijah Mitchell, and Antonio Gibson at running back. Receiver, we only have Cooper Kupp and Terry McLaurin. At quarterback, we have Lamar Jackson. Okay. But Allen Lazard goes pick 90. Kareem Hunt, 91. Okay, that's good for us. Get these running backs off. Good for us. Okay, so the two teams before us, Dragon Isles only has Clyde Edwards-Helaire at running back. Dave has 3 running backs. He has Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, and A.J. Dillon. See what Dragon Isles does, because in theory, he could say, okay, well, these other teams are already loaded up on running backs. I could possibly pass on Damian Harris and roll the dice that he gets back to us at pick 100. But he just goes ahead. He grabs Damian Harris as running back 2 here. Dave on the clock at running back. He has Akers, Dobbins, A.J. Dillon. At receiver, he has Justin Jefferson, T. Higgins, Devontae Smith. He goes Matthew Stafford. We were wanting to get Matthew Stafford, obviously, when we took Cooper Kupp. But I'm personally going to be fine with Christian Kirk at the wide receiver position here. We actually talked about Christian Kirk, I believe, earlier today or yesterday with our bust-proof wide receiver video coming out. And I'm not necessarily saying, oh, Christian Kirk is a smash. He's the best value ever at his ADP, because we need to be realistic. There's a reason why Christian Kirk's going this low. There's a reason Christian Kirk is going right next to Tyler Lockett, Allen Lazard, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Chris Olave. The reason is he probably does have a cap ceiling based on this Jacksonville Jaguars offense in the play of Trevor Lawrence overall. But I am perfectly fine with his floor, given the target share he should command in Jacksonville, given his yards per route run this past season in Arizona. I think he's probably a pretty good fit for this format overall. Okay. Adam says, Kenneth Walker says he prefers Ken. Interesting. That literally must have happened today, because in the draft this morning, his name said Kenneth Walker. And real quick, let me remind everyone, if we get 200 likes in this live stream, we will fire up another draft after this one. If not, all good. We'll get in another one tomorrow. But Minja on the clock. They have Mahomes at quarterback. They have 3 running backs, 3 receivers. They go ahead and they take Robert Woods. I'm going to take Lockett here. I'm going to be pretty excited about taking Tyler Lockett as well. We've talked about this for a long time now, but when we're drafting in July, we have to embrace the fact that there's going to be variance. We have to embrace the fact that we are not going to have all the information about certain situations. And here, we identified the Seattle Seahawks and the Carolina Panthers as wide receivers that could potentially be going slightly undervalued, given the fact that, Drew Lock and Sam Darnold projected to be their starting quarterbacks, and Jimmy Garoppolo and Baker Mayfield projected to be on benches in the NFL. So Baker ends up going to Carolina. So now our last hope is for Tyler Lockett, the wide receivers who averaged a top 24 finish over the past 3 seasons. Somehow they get Jimmy Garoppolo. And I talk about this in our 2022 draft guide, but we wrote that chapter. So let's go ahead. Let's pull this up. This is something that's going to be surprising for most people, I think, because everybody remembers the narrative. Everybody in this chat probably thinks the same thing, that Tyler Lockett's success was because of Russell Wilson. DK Metcalf's success is because DK Metcalf's a grown-ass man. He's an elite-level wide receiver talent. He doesn't need Wilson. Where Tyler Lockett, it was only because of Wilson. Wilson was heavily targeting Lockett just for the hell of it. That's what everybody believes. But if you go ahead and you look at Tyler Lockett this past season, we actually got to see 3 weeks of Geno Smith starting at quarterback. And with those 3 weeks of Geno Smith starting at quarterback, so the only sample that we have of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett with Russell Wilson not there, DK Metcalf had 18 targets. Tyler Lockett had 23 targets. Tyler Lockett was still the wide receiver 1 in this offense with Geno Smith last year. Now, do I think that's going to happen this season? No. But do I think Tyler Lockett should be drafted as a wide receiver 4 in fantasy in a best ball format when they can still grab Jimmy Garoppolo? Probably not. What's hilarious also to see is Tyler Lockett this past season averaged 2.5 yards per route run. Tyler Lockett across the board had his best season really over the past 3 years. The points per game were down just slightly, but that was because you had Russell Wilson taking that time off. So if you're looking at his points per game, yes, they're down slightly. But Lockett averaged more receiving yards per game. Tyler Lockett averaged 2.5 yards per route run, which is an elite mark for receivers. That's double what Allen Robinson had last year. That's almost double what Rashad Bateman had last year. Hit 105 air yards a game as well. That's going to be top 12 in the NFL from this past season. I like Lockett. Robert says, who is going to absorb Jimmy Garoppolo's $20 million? I think San Francisco probably has to pay some of it, very similar to what the Cleveland Browns had to do with Baker Mayfield. I think you're going to have San Francisco having to eat some of that contract and then just dump Jimmy Garoppolo for nothing. They really don't have another option. They gave up 3 first-round picks to get Trey Lance. If you go out of your way and you give up 3 first-round picks for a quarterback, that guy better be starting. Tyler Boyd goes pick 114. Let's slide this up. Oh, okay. This is going to be exciting. Browns, Buck, Allen at quarterback, 4 running backs in Barkley, Zeke, Hunt, James Cook, 4 receivers in Diggs, Metcalf, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Russell Gage. Tim Patrick off the board. Grant says, what is the most efficient best ball strategy? So it's going to change season to season just because drafters are going to react to what ends up happening. But last year, mid-round wide receiver, 100% the way to go. I mean, if you were drafting running backs, and really this is the same over the past 4 or 5 years in best ball contests, or really any fantasy football draft in general, if you were drafting running backs in rounds 3, 4, 5, 6, you are the sucker. Everybody should be pointing at you and laughing at you. If you're drafting Mike Davis in round 4, Mike Davis in round 5, just because you're looking at the amount of touches that are available in that backfield and you're saying, oh, well, this should be a player that has a large role this upcoming season. You're making a mistake. You're drafting a player based on perceived opportunity and not necessarily his talent profile. So even if that opportunity does get there, you're almost drafting him at his ceiling regardless. And if that opportunity goes away, hell, he has absolutely no floor whatsoever. So historically speaking, the best thing to do in these best ball contests has been to hammer a few wide receivers early, to target your running backs very late, and to altogether ignore running backs in the middle rounds. Now, this season, I am unsure if that's optimal. Any smart person you are ever going to talk to is still going to tell you, hell, if you're the guy drafting a running back in round 5, if you're drafting a running back round 6, if you're drafting a running back in round 7, you're a fool. You don't know what you're doing. Any smart person on the planet would tell you that because that's been the case over the past 3 years. Wide receivers have had dramatically better win rates in that range of the draft. Now, what I will say is, just because that's happened over the past 4 or 5 years doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen this season, because everybody now knows. Everybody's been able to look at the data with how popular best ball has become, how popular Underdog Fantasy has become. I mean, Underdog Fantasy's had millions of dollars of drafts this offseason. This is by far and away the most popular form of fantasy football. Fantasy football is probably more popular now than it's ever been. So people have learned this by now. And because of this, you have all these wide receivers flying up draft boards. And now you have guys like Hollywood Brown, pick 29, Mike Williams, pick 32. You have running backs like Josh Jacobs falling to the 6th round a lot. Jacobs, his ADP is in the 6th. J.K. Dobbins falls to the late 5th a ton. Here you get Elijah Mitchell at the very end of the 6th. You get Antonio Gibson at the very beginning of the 7th. So historically speaking, the winning best ball strategy has been to avoid these landmine running backs that are not talented but go in the middle rounds, just given the fact you can project them opportunity. But my counterpoint to that is, if you look at that historical data to come to that conclusion, you're going to be looking at running backs that went in round 5 named Mike Davis. You're going to be looking at running backs that had no reason at all to be going there. All these running backs were going so much earlier. And people have adjusted. People have now pushed these running backs down. And because of that, I think it's going to be a viable strategy to go and grab a Josh Jacobs in round 6, to grab a J.K. Dobbins in round 5, to grab an Antonio Gibson in round 7. Like, you have to always stay flexible. Just because a best ball strategy worked last year doesn't mean it's going to work this upcoming season. So I am the sucker in the room now. I am the idiot in the draft room, which I probably always am. I'm probably always the fish in this room. But regardless, I'm definitely the idiot now drafting Josh Jacobs round 6, because I don't necessarily think you're drafting him there just because of projected opportunity. I think he has some type of upside as well. Okay. Thomas says, Lamar Jackson, ? Wasted pick. Should have taken Michael Gallup. My man. Where were you earlier? You're calling Lamar Jackson a wasted selection. We already went through and looked at our draft guide. We already looked at Lamar Jackson over the past 3 years. We already looked at the fact that Lamar Jackson in 2019 was the best fantasy quarterback of all time. He's averaged a top 4 finish at the position over the past 3. What the hell are you talking about, my friend? I'm assuming you're just trolling. Maybe you're 12. Maybe you're drunk. I don't know, but keep to yourself if you're going to be saying stuff like that, my friend. But let's move on past this. The reason we took Justin Fields here at 123, I'm trying to get quarterbacks that have access to some type of rushing upside. It's as simple as that. Like, it's funny, whenever you're reading our chapters on these quarterbacks in our draft guide, what I do with every single player is I write about a page on all the positives I could find. If I was going to try to convince you to go ahead and to draft Justin Fields, I'm going to try to convince you on the bull reason, the strong side of the portfolio. But there's also the flip side. I also have the bearish case for every single player. I also have the reason you shouldn't go out of your way and you should not draft, say, quarterback X. And if you're looking at Kirk Cousins, if you're looking at Derek Carr, if you're looking at Aaron Rodgers, so many of these players have the same reasoning. It's because these guys don't have access to top 5 overall upside if you don't have access to rushing upside. It's boring. It is 100% boring, and I'll admit it. But looking at someone like Kirk Cousins, he may have a higher floor than Justin Fields, but he doesn't have access to the higher ceiling. And the perfect example of this is if we go ahead and we look at Derek Carr this past season. Derek Carr was the quarterback 5 in passing yards. Derek Carr was only behind Tom Brady, Justin Herbert, Matthew Stafford, and Patrick Mahomes in passing yards. That is exactly where he was. But he didn't run the ball. He had no rushing upside. He wasn't going to get you 35 rushing yards a game. He wasn't going to get you a rushing touchdown every other week. And because of that, you're looking at Derek Carr as someone who was a quarterback 2 in fantasy. Whereas on the opposite end of the spectrum, Jalen Hurts was the quarterback 6 on a points per game basis. And Jalen Hurts was atrocious. Jalen Hurts had 6 weeks over 200 passing yards a game. 6 weeks with over 200 passing yards. Yet he was the quarterback 6 in fantasy. Derek Carr was 5th in the NFL in passing yards, only behind Tom Brady, Justin Herbert, Matthew Stafford, and Patrick Mahomes, and he was a quarterback 2. For that reason, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to prioritize rushing quarterbacks. Justin Fields is someone that I wasn't drafting too much of previously. Y'all know I've never liked Justin Fields. Last year, I was Justin Fields' probably #1 hater. Maybe it was because I was blinded by my love of Trey Lance, but I was a massive Justin Fields hater last year. And if you're looking at his 35 rushing yards per game, well, that's not necessarily in the Lamar Jackson light. That's not necessarily going to be in the same classification as a Justin Fields. It's almost unfair to use any per game numbers for Justin Fields. And I'm sorry, I meant to say Jalen Hurts earlier, because with Justin Fields, he was playing some of those games, only half of them. You had Andy Dalton playing half of those games. So if you're looking at any per game number from Justin Fields, it's inherently going to be skewed. I think Justin Fields actually gets closer to about 45 rushing yards per game. And even if he is an option that is not a good real life quarterback, which I don't expect him to be, I think he could be viable in fantasy. Sam says, if I use code FLOCK on Underdog, how do I get your free draft guide? Thank you, my man, for asking so I can talk about this. But if you go use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy, so you can most importantly have some fun and hop into some drafts with us, you're going to get our Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide. You're going to get our 2022 rankings, our 2022 Dynasty rankings, and you're going to get that with a welcome email from Underdog. So it's not going to happen right away. What will happen right away is when you sign up and you make your first deposit with Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK, right away in their system, that's going to get double. If you deposit $50, you're going to have $100 in your account when you use promo code FLOCK. But it does need to go through the system, so it's going to take about an hour for you to get a welcome email with the link to our rankings and with our 2022 Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide, which has over 130 pages of information. Okay, so Robbie Anderson goes pick 158. Like the Robbie Anderson pick, of course. DJ Chark, 159. I honestly probably would say DJ Chark outscores Jameson Williams this year. If you're just talking raw fantasy points, right? Raw fantasy points, not points per game, not points at the end of the season, where in a tournament style of draft, they matter. But if we assume Jameson Williams misses 4 or 5 weeks, which Jameson Williams tore his ACL after Chris Godwin did, for everybody so concerned about Godwin, DJ Chark looks pretty appealing here. Pick 159. Dragon Isle says, Mason, what do you think of my draft? Okay, let me make my 2 selections here, my man, and I'll be happy to go through and look at your draft. And let me remind everyone, if we get 200 likes in this live stream, we are going to go ahead and we are going to fire up another draft after this. But Marvin Jones goes at pick 163. I don't even know who we have drafted. Okay, we have Lamar Fields at quarterback. Running back, Fournette, Javonte, Elijah Mitchell, Antonio Gibson. Receiver, Cooper Kupp, Terry McLaurin, Christian Kirk, Tyler Lockett, Rondale Moore, Jamison Crowder. Tight end, we have Robert Tonyan. Good team, not a great team. It's whatever. And definitely I still want to prioritize getting stacks in. They're not going to be nearly as important here as they would be, say, in a tournament-style draft. But if we can get them, we still like them. The quarterbacks that we have, we are betting more so on the rushing upside rather than the passing volume, so I'm fine not necessarily having these guys stacked up. But let's take Higbee here as our tight end 2. In these private drafts, I would not do this in Best Ball Mania. In Best Ball Mania, I do think this is going to cap your ceiling in weeks 15, 16, 17. But I'm going to prefer drafting 3 tight ends and 3 quarterbacks. Like, I think here in these private drafts, getting your 8th, getting your 9th receiver, going to be way less important. Way, way, way less important. Okay, so Evan Ingram goes pick 169. Okay. Do we go ahead and take Darrell Williams as our 5th running back, as a running back that is going to have a small role on a week-to-week basis, has an elite level ceiling if you were to see anything to James Conner in that backfield? You know what? We're probably not going to do that. And instead, let's grab a running back that I think is perfect for this format. Now, please don't see me make this selection and go and do this in Best Ball Mania or go and do this in the puppy draft. I am never drafting Mark Ingram here in one of those tournament-style drafts because he will not be producing in the final 3 weeks. He does not have an elite level ceiling on a week-to-week basis. But like we discussed, in these private drafts, points in week 1 matter just as much as points in week 15. Literally, they're exactly the same. Getting a point in week 1 is the exact same as getting a point in week 15. So if we can go ahead, draft Mark Ingram, and have the potential that he is, say, starting the first 3 weeks, we're going to be completely fine. Thomas says, drafting any quarterback before 12, the 12th round, is a wasted pick. Thomas, my man, I feel like we don't even have to come back to that, because if you go ahead, if you look at win rates from best ball drafts, if you look at win rates in regular fantasy football drafts over the past 2 to 3 years, you will find the best selections in drafts last year were grabbing elite level quarterbacks, not necessarily Patrick Mahomes in round 3, but if you were able to get guys like Allen, Tom Brady, if you were able to go ahead and grab, say, Dak Prescott, if you were grabbing Joe Burrow, if you were getting those players in round 7 and 8, you were crushing the field, especially if you took 2 of those guys. So I'm sorry. You clearly have not done much research. It is okay. You can do you, my friend. What I encourage you, Thomas, if you are such a good drafter with your strategy and not taking a quarterback until after round 12, my man, oh, dear God, I got good news for you. You're probably way better at fantasy football than I am. So much better. So I don't know if you're new around here. What's great is I actually do real money fantasy football drafts every single night. So since you're that much better at fantasy football than I am, I formally invite you. Come draft with me every single night. You can slowly but surely take my money. I'm sure you're a lot smarter than everybody else in the chat as well. You can go and take their money as well. But just make sure so you can take as much money as possible when you sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code FLOCK, my friend, and you'll get my rankings. Use them against me. My man, I will stand no chance to your superiority. You will be crushing me like the clown, like the fool that I truly am. But after we take Mark Ingram, we do have some running backs going off the board. That is going to be good for us. I don't necessarily want to load up on a ton of wide receivers in this format in particular. It is what it is, though. It is what it is. Okay, Donta Foreman goes 181. This draft looks so gross, but I think my brain is legitimately just broken. Legitimately just broken. Given the fact that I'm usually just thinking about the ultimate upside that we can find in weeks 15, 16, 17. That's usually all I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about week 1 at all. So here, hopefully this team is fine. We'll see. But let's go look at Team 5 here, Dragon Isles, someone who's been a long-time member of the flock. Dragon Isles has been a member of the flock for years now. Takes Jamar Chase at 5, Debo at pick 20, Hollywood Brown at 29. Now, Hollywood Brown 29 is going to be an interesting selection. I would say in Best Ball Mania, I would hate this. Hate it. I would prefer Allen. I'd prefer Kamara. I'd prefer Connor. I'd prefer DJ Moore. Possibly prefer Mike Williams as well. But here, this is not Best Ball Mania. Like we've discussed, weeks 1, 2, and 3 are worth just as much. So when weeks 1, 2, and 3 are worth just as much, weeks 4, 5, and 6, and you're getting no DeAndre Hopkins and Hollywood Brown can reasonably be a wide receiver 1 there, I think Hollywood's a fine selection at this point. Kittle, pick 44. It is what it is. Gabriel Davis, 53. Burrow getting the stack in with Jamar Chase. CEH, Damian Harris. I would say I think this team does have a lot of upside. If this was a tournament-style draft, I probably would like it. But given the fact of what we've been talking about, that this is cumulative scoring, I probably do prefer grabbing, say, a Cam Akers over a George Kittle in round 4, because I think the roster construction advantage that you get by being able to go ahead and stop at drafting 2 tight ends is not as important in this draft as it would be in a tournament. Okay, so we're going to take Austin Hooper, pick 190 as our 3rd tight end. After this, we're probably going to grab a receiver. And it looks like we had 200 likes in the live stream, so we'll just fire up another draft after this. Now, I'm not going to do a Best Ball Mania. I'm going to do a private draft. I'm going to go create a different draft board, share the link with y'all. It will say, join our $10 draft here. Join our $10 draft here, whatever it is. Maybe we do a 10, maybe we do a $3 draft. I'll do a $3 draft just so y'all can get more familiar with the private drafts. We're going to be doing this all off season. But Scantron on the clock. They go Kendrick Bourne, pick 193. Thomas says, what do I have to download to get in a draft? My man, I only say it every 15 seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, y'all see why I have to say this every 15 seconds, right? Y'all get it, okay? I hope this is a real example. I know it's annoying hearing me talk about downloading Underdog Fantasy. Link in the description, link in the live stream. Go join our drafts with us every single night, but that's why we have to do it, okay? We're on the clock here. Let's go ahead and let's take Julio Jones. And then I'm just going to go queue up some players, set up our next draft room. That way I can get that link out for everyone. Okay. So let's take Julio, then queue up some. I don't even want to tell y'all what I'm queuing up because obviously people are watching the stream. Okay. We should be good there in that draft room. Let's just go ahead and find our next one. We're just going to do a $3 draft. Like I said, I know we did a ton of private drafts last year, but we haven't done these in quite a while. We've been doing the tournament drafts up until this point. So I do want to give everybody a fair shot on figuring it out before we get into some of these higher buy-in drafts. I apologize. Okay, so we just sent that link out there in the live chat. Thomas says, actually, it's not in the description. Thomas, you're about to get banned, my man. The first thing in the description says, draft with me on playunderdogfantasy.com. You're about to get banned, my man. At some point, you just got to use some intelligence. But let's move this over. We are going to be picking at the 111 here. So it will be a completely different draft than what we had last time. Let me look at the people that are going to be in this with us. We have Karma, Steve the Weave. I cannot pronounce his name. Pionio? You know I'm an idiot. Okay. Conceit, DSR. I'm only going to say the names I can say. Dragon Isles, Dean James. Okay. We're going to keep it simple. Keep it simple. Okay. Josh says he's in here at the 101. Happy to see you in this draft, my man. And I don't even know what we're going to do at the 111. 111, I usually want to come away with, say, a Travis Kelce. That way we can only have to draft 2 tight ends. That way we can save an extra roster spot for the wide receiver position. But here, like I already said, I don't necessarily think it matters nearly as much to grab that 8th wide receiver, to grab that 7th wide receiver. So I'll still probably take Kelce if he's there. A running back's probably not as bad as it would be in a tournament-style draft. Okay. But we have Jonathan Taylor, Cooper Kupp, Christian McCaffrey going off the board to start this one. And I will say, I expected CMC to be the 101 in a ton of these drafts after the Baker Mayfield trade. And I got in probably about 5 or 6 drafts today, this morning, before the live stream. And those were just public drafts on Underdog. And I don't think I saw CMC there once. Like, it looked very standard. It looked like what it had been before the Baker Mayfield trade. You had Jonathan Taylor 1. You had Cooper Kupp 2. CMC, like, that was just still the very standard draft. Now, I will say, 100%, Robbie Anderson is moving up draft boards. But CMC, and on top of that, DJ Moore as well. DJ Moore has not been moving up nearly as much as I thought he would. Okay. So let's look at this. The Conti coming out says, haven't drafted with you in months. Thank you, my man. Happy to get you in this one. And Dalvin Cook goes at the 109. Okay. Well, what are we wanting here? Like I said, I think wide receivers in these private drafts aren't going to be as valuable as they are in public drafts. And I see that note, Najee Harris expects more rest this year. Should we let that affect our price point of not? No. This team brought in nothing at running back. Why would this year be anything different than last year for the second-year player? Okay, so Devontae Adams goes pick 12. Aaron Jones, 13. Okay, let's take Travis Kelce. Like I said, usually I'm jumping up and down with joy to grab Kelce at 11 because when you grab Kelce, you're only going to have to draft one other tight end. But if we are in these private drafts, kind of like getting 3. Kind of like getting 3 for the floor-ceiling combination because also, obviously, the tight end can slide into your flex. Colin coming out with the donation. Thank you, my man. I appreciate you. Steven says, which $3 draft are you in? Okay, so please, guys, this is why I wanted to do just the $3 draft here to show y'all about these private drafts. When we do the private drafts on the live stream, you are not going to go to the public lobby and you are not going to click one of those links to join. It is legitimately a private draft. If you scroll up, it's going to be filled, obviously, so you can't join it now. But scroll up in the chat and look at the message that said $3 buy-in and then had the link there. That is the draft that we are in. It was a private draft that I created for only people in this live stream. So that will be a lot of what we are doing going forward. So yes, I'm going to be sending out links that say join our next draft here and a link to Underdog Fantasy. That is just so people who are not signed up can go ahead and they can get signed up. That way they are ready to join our next draft. Because if you wait for us to create that private draft and then send the link out, you have no shot at getting in. Realistically, no shot at all. So you need to make sure you have your account set up beforehand. Of course, I will give the clarification whenever we set up that league. I will announce it on the live stream saying, look in the chat. There's the $3 draft link. It's labeled, yada, yada, yada. So it's very clear. Okay. So Leonard Fournette goes pick 20. We have Lamb and Mike Evans falling to pick 18 and 19. I would say in these private drafts, week 1 is valuable as week 15. Oh, dear God, you have to be so excited about getting Mike Evans here. Mike Evans is a wide receiver that in Best Ball Mania, in the puppy drafts, I haven't drafted that often because by the time we get to that final stretch, you are going to have Godwin back. You could potentially, just potentially, have Rob Gronkowski coming back from retirement at the end of the season. Now, I don't necessarily think that's likely. I'm not drafting Rob Gronkowski every single time in the last round of Best Ball Mania drafts at this point. But nonetheless, Mike Evans, you would not be surprised if he is the wide receiver 1 through the first month of this season, assuming that Chris Godwin does land on the PUP, which is entirely possible here. So I like Evans at 13 in this format. Love Evans at 13 in this format. Joseph says, what was your pre-draft rookie analysis on Romeo Doubs? If that's something you know off the top of your head, I think it was a great landing spot for him. Obviously a great landing spot. He does fall to day 3. I will say I made a massive mistake. By far and away, the biggest mistake that I made in our, I'm sorry, let me pull this up. In our 2022 Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide, which was over 130 pages. I know a ton of people in this live stream read it. One mistake that I had is a website we got this data point from looks to be false. I've had different reports on what the actual 40-yard dash time was for Romeo Doubs. Some sites are saying it was like a 4.72, which if that's the case, obviously he's dead. But it doesn't look like that was the case. And that's what I put in the Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide. But that's what the sites I was looking at were telling me. So I apologize for it. Now, I will say he wasn't crazy productive at Nevada. This is a player that had like a 32% dominator rating. And if you have that and you play in Alabama, you have that, you play at LSU, you play at Texas, you play at a major program, oh, that's cool. I mean, yeah, you can definitely be an effective receiver as long as you broke out early, as long as you declared early for the draft. But for you to come from a school like Nevada, you legitimately need to be putting up close to 50% of your team's receiving production on a per game basis. That's what we need to see from a production profile from a receiver coming from a small school in college. We also need to see you breaking out as a rookie. We need to see you also declaring after your junior season. Romeo Doubs, he didn't do any of that. He was productive, not hyper productive. He broke out as a sophomore, which is still fine, but that's great if you're at Ohio State. If you're at Nevada, whatever. And also, he stayed all 4 years at a small program. He gets drafted on day 3. I'm not a massive fan. Okay. Well, let's pull this up. Oh my gosh. Y'all let Cortland Sutton fall to me in the 3rd round? This is a gift from God. How are y'all going to let Cortland Sutton fall to me at pick 35? Oh my gosh. How are you going to let that happen? But we will take DJ Moore just because I have too much Cortland Sutton. I've drafted Cortland Sutton in probably 90% of my drafts because I am drafting him in round 2 most of the time. So just from a diversification standpoint, I don't want to end up with 100% Cortland Sutton across all these teams. We will go ahead. We'll take a wide receiver I haven't taken very often. Barely have drafted him at all. We'll take DJ Moore. It is what it is. But hopefully we get Sutton making it back to us. Jalen Waddle goes 36. Oh, Deontay Johnson's also someone that I've barely drafted. I don't even know if I have Deontay Johnson in a single draft. It's a very rare selection for me. Maybe just for diversification purposes, we go Deontay Johnson over Cortland Sutton. Because, of course, why would I want a wide receiver who averaged 10.5 targets a game last year? That was the wide receiver 7 on a per-game basis last year. That's still on his rookie contract. Why would I want that player, Deontay Johnson, over Cortland Sutton? A wide receiver is going to turn 27 this season and never finish as a top 24 wide receiver on a per-game basis. Like, why would I ever want Deontay Johnson over Sutton. Like, clearly, people who are drafting Courtland Sutton in round 3 are doing it right. But we're going to not take either. We're going to go ahead. We're going to take Travis Etienne here at the 402 as our second running back off the board, getting both 2021 first round drafted running backs in Najee Harris and Travis Etienne on the same team. Hell, maybe it's good luck. Maybe it's good luck. Ryan says, Courtland Sutton should be drafted as the 101. No doubt. Yeah, my man. It's crazy that Sutton wasn't selected 39 picks ago. Do you not know how tall Courtland Sutton is? Here, listen to this expert analysis. DK Metcalf tall. Courtland Sutton tall. Russell Wilson likes tall DK Metcalf. Russell Wilson will love tall Courtland Sutton. Have you not heard that expert analysis from anybody and everybody? Come on, think on it. Think on it. It's not rocket scientist. It's not rocket science, ladies and gentlemen. You should be drafting Courtland Sutton over wide receivers that command over 26% of their team's target share. Thomas says, I'm not touching any Denver Broncos this year. You should be touching KJ Hamler. I have a lot of KJ Hamler. All jokes aside, obviously, y'all know I'm not drafting Courtland Sutton, but I am drafting KJ Hamler in a decent amount of these. We're drafting KJ Hamler usually around 15. He's actually been falling a little bit as of late. I think you have some contingency value if you have an injury to any of the receivers in front of him. And also, given his speed, given his big playability, I think in a best ball format, you could get 1 to 2 random spike weeks, almost regardless from KJ Hamler. He's still incredibly young. He was the second round selection in that same draft class in 2020 as Jerry Jeudy. However, KJ Hamler was the youngest wide receiver in that draft class. And KJ Hamler, I literally have a jersey over there. But he was about to win us so much money last year. So much money. When we were picking him up in the 17th. Broke out in the preseason, and then obviously tore his knee up before the season even started. Okay. Ryan says, where do you have Courtland Sutton ranked, Mason? I probably have Sutton ranked as a 5th round pick. Let me pull this up. After we take Travis Etienne, really standard draft afterwards. See if there's anything off the wall. Not necessarily. Montgomery goes pick 49. And obviously it seems crazy that you have Patrick Mahomes falling this far, but Mahomes falls to the 5th round in every single draft. Mahomes is eventually going to be my most drafted quarterback, which is a little bit nerve-wracking, obviously, given the situation. Not only does Patrick Mahomes lose Tyreek Hill this offseason, Patrick Mahomes loses Byron Pringle. Patrick Mahomes loses Demarcus Robinson. The only wide receiver that has caught a pass from Patrick Mahomes in the NFL before that's on that roster is McCole Hardman. Oh, dear God, is McCole Hardman. But it's Patrick Mahomes in the 5th round. I tweeted out earlier today, I'm a simple man, probably a simple-minded man, but if I see Patrick Mahomes in the 5th round, I draft Patrick Mahomes in the 5th round. Okay. If I'm looking at where I have Courtland Sutton ranked, I have Courtland Sutton ranked wide receiver 26. I have Sutton ranked right in the same tier as Juju Smith-Schuster, Amari Cooper, Michael Thomas, Brandon Cooks, and Rashad Bateman. Those are the groups that I have Courtland Sutton with. Yes, I'm a little bit higher on Michael Thomas than most. I like to swing for the fences. I like to really feel the pain. Really feel the pain. R. Gordon says, is Arch Manning overrated? Man, do you not see the University of Texas setup we have over here? Do you not know I'm in Austin, Texas? Do you not know a couple years ago I graduated from the University of Austin? Talking to a Texas alum here. You're going to ask me if the person who's going to save our school, save our team, is overrated? Are you kidding me? No, he's not overrated. He's the next coming, okay? So, Chris Godwin, in a tournament-style draft, maybe I consider him here. Oh, dear God. You can't consider Chris Godwin in a private draft where he can miss the first 4 weeks of the season. So let's go ahead and instead probably just end up grabbing one of our most drafted players so far this offseason. Let's go ahead. Let's draft Josh Jacobs. Like I said, historically, this has been the running back dead zone, but I mean, this is now mainstream. Everybody watching this live stream has probably heard of the running back dead zone, has probably heard it over and over and over again this offseason, where it has now changed, ladies and gentlemen. These wide receivers, if you look historically, are going significantly higher than years past. So the opportunity cost to take one of these running backs and the quality of player you're getting at the 5'6" turn here in Josh Jacobs is completely different than the historical data would suggest of 2018, 2019, 2020. But Dean James on the clock. Let's see where they go. Pick 61. They go Amon-Ra St. Brown. So let's take Kyler Murray. Let's grab the elite level quarterback. It's going to be an easy selection for us. If we're looking at Kyler, the Arizona Cardinals with Cliff Kingsbury over the past 3 years, they've actually been number 2 in the NFL in both pace of play, and they've been top 5 in the NFL in passing rate over expectation in game-neutral environments. Kyler Murray has increased his adjusted yards per pass attempt. Let me just go ahead and let me pull up our 2022 fantasy football draft guide so we don't have to just continue to go off the top of my head. Usually I can memorize a lot of these statistics that we use in our draft guide, but it's just so much easier if I go ahead and pull it up. It's all right here. Let me Control F Kyler. And like I was saying here with Kyler Murray, he's increased his adjusted yards per pass attempt from his rookie season at 6.6 to 7.1 to 7.9 this past season. He's increased his passing yards from 232 to 248 to 270. He has back-to-back finishes here inside the top 5 quarterbacks. Now you are getting him outside the top 5 quarterbacks in ADP, getting him a pick 62. I'm going to be fine with it. Give me Kyler Murray here. Hopefully we get some more rushing touchdowns. Hopefully James Conner doesn't score close to 20 touchdowns again this upcoming season, and some of those goal line rushing TDs go back to Kyler. Joshua says, just signed up for Underdog Fantasy and got my deposit matched. I will try to hop in this next draft. Thank you, my man, so much. I promise you, I appreciate it a ton. And real quick, I do need to announce this because we are going to go ahead. We are going to start posting these links for the first draft we do on the live stream over there on Discord. That way they can fill really quick like you've seen before. So we're going to fill them through Discord, and also we are going to fill them through the YouTube live chat. So if you want to go ahead and get a better shot at joining all these drafts with us, make sure you just go and join our Discord. It's completely free. I never talk about this, but there are thousands of people in our Discord. I mean, people just find it, I guess, in the description of the video. I'll send it out there. Randy says, what if Cortland Sutton went to the University of Texas? I'm not going to lie. I'm not that biased towards the University of Texas players. Like, I like Devin Duvernay, but I literally used to see Devin Duvernay all the time walking around campus. Like, Sam Ehlinger was drafted last year, who was our starting quarterback for my entire 4 years at the University of Texas. I did see him around campus a couple times, not nearly as much as I saw Devin Duvernay. I had a class with Colin Johnson, if y'all remember Colin Johnson from last season. But I don't necessarily think I'm that biased. I have drafted a lot of Devin Duvernay, I will admit it. But outside of that, like, never thought Sam Ehlinger was going to be anything. Okay. So Devontae Smith goes pick 76. Hopkins would be appealing. Like, if we had Hopkins fall to us at pick 83, where we could get the stack and he has that elite level ceiling down the stretch, I would be pumped. I would be ecstatic for that if it was a tournament draft. But here in a private draft, when it's going to be cumulative scoring throughout the entire season, for a wide receiver to miss the first 6 weeks, Hopkins would have to be you have no idea how many points per game Hopkins would have to average through the final 11 weeks of the season for his ADP to be justified here. Of course, in the tournament style draft, I'll be fine with it, but here it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Okay. So let's see what Dragon Isles does. Hopefully someone takes Hopkins before us. R. Gordon says, Mason, what was your major? Finance, question mark. Sadly, I got actually 2 separate degrees from the University of Texas, and neither of them are useful whatsoever. I have a degree from the College of Natural Sciences in biology, and I have a degree in kinesiology as well from the College of Education. Neither of them, technically kinesiology is exercise science, is a little more scientific, but none of them are useful. Literally, for one of my final projects I did for biostatistics, I had a write-up where everybody, I've told this story a ton, but it's hilarious. Everybody in the class, of course, did something smart, talked about vaccines, went out there, talked about some large field studies, were smart, yada, yada, yada. I went out there and I researched correlation between high school recruit rank and fantasy football success at the NFL level. Like, that's what I was doing in college. Just wasting everyone's time, but also making YouTube videos. So I guess it was worth it. But Damon Harris goes pick 84. And yes, Kyler Murray would be fantastic, like I already said, if it wasn't a private draft, if it wasn't cumulative scoring. So I think we honestly maybe have to pass on Kyler here. We're just going to take Miles Sanders. And we're going to take Ayuk. I would love to get the stack with Kyler. If it was a tournament-style draft, I would have taken DeAndre Hopkins at pick 83. But here, given the fact he's going to miss the first 6 weeks, I don't even know if I could take Hopkins at 86. Like, missing the first 6 weeks in a cumulative scoring format is massive, massive. Okay, Soren asking if you can see the draft board. Yes, let me go through and show this off. We drafted from pick 11. We have Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders at running back. At tight end, we have Travis Kelce. At quarterback, we have Kyler. And at wide receiver, we have the combination of DJ Moore and Brandon Ayuk. Not a great team, but I think an acceptable team if you're going to be looking at the floor in a cumulative scoring format. Hopkins goes pick 89. I think at some point you have to take Hopkins because obviously he's going to have a significantly higher points per game mark than any other wide receiver in this range. I do think it just comes down to the math for you and how much those first 6 weeks at the beginning of the season is going to cost them. Brock asking us, Mason, who is your favorite NFL team? I'm sorry. I know it's the most boring answer ever, and trust me, it's like a curse. I don't have a favorite NFL team. I don't have an NFL team I root for. I lived in Tampa last year, so I moved to Tampa, and I told myself, hell, the Bucs just won the Super Bowl. It'll be very fun to root for Tampa. Obviously, all my friends there rooted for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I told myself, we're a Bucs fan this year. I never rooted for a team before that, really. And I'd put on the Bucs game, and instead of rooting for the Bucs like I was supposed to be doing, I'd just be sitting there trying to figure out how many targets Chris Godwin had. Look at the role that Antonio Brown had in the offense I was affecting. It would be the third quarter, and I would have completely forgotten that I was supposed to have a rooting interest in that game. It sucks, but it's hard for me to get into a game from a rooting standpoint for an individual team. Even the University of Texas. Obviously, I love Texas. I love the University of Texas. But if I watch their football game, it's like I watch it as a TV show. I don't necessarily root for someone. I almost just watch it to enjoy it, which I would say is definitely more of a curse than anything. Okay. So let me know if y'all prefer these private drafts or these tournament drafts. I think the tournament drafts are probably more fun to draft overall. Like I said, Best Ball Mania is about 25% filled, but you can only do 150 teams, and I'm closing in on my 150 teams, and I genuinely love getting into these drafts off the live stream, so I need to save some of my entries. That way I can do them at the gym. I just have to. Okay, so Sky Moore goes pick 98. We need receivers making it back to us. If we're looking at this, according to Thomas in the chat, we took a quarterback before round 12. So obviously that was just a pick thrown in the trash can, taking Kyler Murray there. It's not like we're trying to score fantasy points or anything. We should have just grabbed Jared Goff at the end. Jared Goff's going to probably outscore Kyler Murray, obviously. Joking, but we do definitely need some receiver help. We can grab another running back here, but I would almost rather wait until the very end of the draft and grab 2 more running backs. So let's see. James Cook goes 101. James Cook is a running back that I've been drafting very often, just given the fact that you're looking at him as someone that's going to have that passing down role almost guaranteed in Buffalo with upside for more if an injury were to occur in front of him. So we are up in 5. Devin Singletary goes pick 102. Okay, good for us. Good for us. Derek says, can we just ban Thomas? He is trying too hard. The issue with banning someone is, like, if someone comes in and, like, spews hate in the chat, like, if you just think through this, I've dealt with this for years, obviously, so let me try to give some perspective to it. Like, say someone comes into a live chat on a live stream and spews hate. They clearly have something going on with, like, their personal life, and they're almost using it as, like, a way to deal with it, you know? So, like, they have something going on in their regular life, not going for them well. So, if they can come in and spew hate in a live chat, and it helps them get through that, helps their day get better, probably good for them. Whereas to ban someone from a chat after they do that, it's almost like kicking someone when they're down. So I'd rather not do that. But let's go ahead. Let's take Chase Claypool here. I think you could make the argument that in this draft in particular, taking Zach Ertz would probably be the way to go, given the fact that Zach Ertz should have the expanded role through the first 6 weeks with no DeAndre Hopkins. We have Kyler as well, but we have Travis Kelce on this team. We desperately need a wide receiver. I think that we could almost get away with, I don't want to say drafting 3 tight ends on this team because we took Kelce. We still need to draft 2. But if we grab some more wide receivers here, I think we could potentially get away with drafting 3 quarterbacks, which is crazy to say because obviously you would never consider doing such a thing in a tournament-style draft. But here I think you would. Okay. So Christian Watson goes pick 111. Tyler Boyd 112. I actually really like what we did with Robert Woods and Chase Claypool at the turn there, because if you're looking at Robert Woods, this is a wide receiver that reports are very positive right now about his recovery process and how much time he should actually miss. Okay, so Shug coming out says, how much are the private drafts? The drafts we're getting in right now are just $3 drafts. That way, it's almost like a mock draft. Like, we have it titled that it's just a mock draft in this live stream. But they're just $3 drafts. That way, people can get familiar with the private drafts and changing from a mindset where you're just trying to set up correlation and trying to set up the highest ceiling possible through those final 3 weeks. And instead, you're just trying to go out of your way and you are trying to find a way score points throughout the entire season, which is something that I'm not good at, but we're gonna try to find out how to do such a thing. And also that way it's easy for y'all to figure out how to get in these drafts as well. So we will bump the price points up if y'all want. Last year we had a decent amount of $100 private drafts, which was fun, of course. I think we're probably gonna try to save some money for tournament style drafts. But we can definitely bump up the buy-in once we get closer to the season. But I want to make sure that everybody in the live stream is very comfortable, has had a ton of experience drafting on Underdog, has experience in knowing how to hop in these private drafts with us. That way, nobody tries to hop in a $100 draft and messes something up. Okay. So after we take Chase Claypool, Ertz off the board, Irv Smith Jr. off the board. Irv Smith Jr. is someone that I really liked in Dynasty as a buy this offseason. And I really liked him on Underdog about a month or 2 ago. But to see this price point now, I'm almost off on Irv Smith Jr. Which is crazy to say because I feel like I've been an Irv Smith Jr. fanboy for a very long time. Like, let me go ahead and pull up our draft guide, our chapter on Irv Smith Jr. here. But this is a player that does have positive signs going in his direction. Obviously, you have the coaching change in Minnesota, potentially making this a more pass-friendly offense overall. And at the same time, if we go back to the last season Irv Smith Jr. played, which was 2020, this was a tight end that was 21 years old. He was drafted in 2019 at 20 years old. He was the youngest tight end in the NFL draft. One of the youngest tight ends I've ever seen come into the NFL outside of Pitts, of course. Actually, he was probably younger or the same age as Kyle Pitts when Kyle Pitts came in. But nonetheless, the last time we saw him play, he was 21 years old, and he was fine. I mean, he went out there and he led this team in targets at the tight end position, but you also had Kyle Rudolph. You also had Tyler Conklin there. And if we look at the combination of Irv Smith Jr., Tyler Conklin, and Kyle Rudolph, they combined for 106 targets, almost 900 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns as well. So now that you don't have those tight ends, you potentially have a better scheme overall in Minnesota. Adam Thielen's going to be 32 years old this upcoming season. There are a lot of reasons to be excited about Irv Smith Jr., still an incredibly young player, should be 100%, 110% by week 1. But this price point is getting a little rich when you're taking him over Gesicki, because we have yet to see Irv Smith Jr. be an efficient tight end at the next level. His career high in yards per route run was 1.4 in 2020. Now, keep in mind, he was 21 years old. You're not expecting a 21-year-old outside of Kyle Pitts to go out there and be hyper efficient right away. But still, like, Gesicki goes behind him in almost every single draft at this point. And I do think I'd prefer Gesicki. Okay, so we're going to take Mecole Hardman. It's going to be a very easy selection. Jameson Williams in this range is someone that you can't draft. Like, Jameson Williams, I wouldn't draft him for rounds with this being cumulative scoring. Okay, so Mecole Hardman, pick 131. Okay, we have not done this in a while, but my dog just walked in here. Let me see if I can get her over here, and I'll hold her up on the live stream. Molly, come here, baby girl. Okay, she's sitting. Let me get her up here. Good girl. You can see them. Here. Turn this way so they can see you. Yeah, I know. There you go. Good girl. Okay. Oh, crap. We are on the clock. Oh, dear God. If we would have auto-drafted Jameson Williams after talking crap about Jameson Williams, that would have not been good. But regardless, we are going to take Jakobi Meyers here as our wide receiver 6. Just getting wide receivers in that are going to get targets, that are going to give us definitely a weekly role. Okay, but perfect. So let's scroll down. After this, I think we are almost set at receiver. We definitely at this point have the optionality of bringing in 6 running backs, which I do like with the cumulative scoring format. Don't necessarily love that if you're going to be talking about Best Ball Mania or a puppy draft, but good thing we got Jakobi Meyers and Mecole Hardman here. I think with Mecole Hardman, this is a wide receiver. I need to be 100% transparent. Hardman was more expensive than this last year, and he had Tyreek Hill, and I was advocating to draft for Mecole Hardman. Like, if we just go back and look at the selling point of Mecole Hardman, which obviously in hindsight, and people told me it was horrendous at the time. People were smart enough in the chat to go, Mason, you got to stop it. You can't be drafting Mecole Hardman here, you idiot. Draft Marquez Valdez-Scantling later. And that was a 100% correct take. I was idiotic for drafting Mecole Hardman in that range. But the thought process with Mecole Hardman was he's the wide receiver 2 for the Kansas City Chiefs, which ended up being true. He was the second receiver in targets in this offense. And with Mecole Hardman, he was a 5-star prospect going to Georgia. He goes to Georgia as a defensive back. He converts over to receiver later on in his collegiate career. So he was a very raw player coming into the NFL, was not supposed to be productive right away. And he was supposed to be a long-term option, a long-term project for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, don't want to be trying to tell anybody to draft Mecole Hardman this year. I lost people money telling them to do it last year. But pick 131 in a best ball format where we can expect some volatility here. I think it will be fine. J-Cell says, I am digging my team. Call me crazy. I meant, please point out your team. And B-Boy says, if we already joined Underdog last year, can we use promo code FLOCK again at all this year? Or is there another opportunity that will match our deposit? I'm about to deposit $100 soon. I'm sorry, my man. The promo code for the first time deposit is 1 per account. It's not like you can do it every single year. I mean, if You could do it every single year. Think about how much money Underdog Fantasy would be losing because they are paying you to draft fantasy football teams. They're paying you to test it out because they know you're going to love it. They know you'll be back next year. They know you'll be back the year after that. So that's why they are paying you to do it the first year, because you're going to be doing it for years to come. So no, I'm sorry, my man, but they're not going to match your deposit 100% again this upcoming season. It's a one-time deal with promo code FLOCK per account. Okay. So let's look at this after Jacoby Myers. So we have 6 receivers drafted, 1 tight end, 1 quarterback. Hunter Henry goes off the board, 151. That was the last tight end in this tier. I'd be surprised if you see Higbee off the board before us. Dragon Isles on the clock. They have Cousins, Kamara, Akers, Dillon, White. Receiver, Diggs, Juju, Lazard, Hopkins, Osborne. You go Tyrion Davis-Price. Tyrion Davis-Price is someone that I'm drafting a lot. Ben says, is there a way to access the draft guide if we already signed up last year? Yes, they are available on flockfantasy.com. Hopefully Monday, we have our 2022 fantasy football draft guide out. And if we do, or if it's not Monday, it'll be like Tuesday or Wednesday. Like, we're going to have it out next week, and I'll be blasting that link everywhere. I will be talking about it in pretty much every single video. So don't worry, my man. If you don't know, you will know very, very soon. The Dynasty stuff is available on flockfantasy.com right now, but the 2022 fantasy football draft guide is just a pre-order over there. Okay, so you have Lawrence off the board. That sucks. I was really hoping that we were going to get Trevor Lawrence at this point. I think we go DJ Chark. We talked about this in the last draft, but with DJ Chark, not necessarily a pick that I love from a tournament style, given the fact that, hell, you're going to see that production front loaded before Jameson Williams comes back later in the year. But it's cumulative scoring. I'm fine taking someone like DJ Chark here, pick 155. And then afterwards, I don't even know what we're hoping for. But I was really hoping we got Lawrence making it to us because we had Travis Etienne. Lawrence obviously was falling about 15 picks past his ADP. Keel Herbert goes pick 156. We can go Baker here. We have DJ Moore. We could get Baker Mayfield in the last round. So maybe we want to just wait and end up grabbing 3 quarterbacks at the very end. Marvin Jones Jr. off the board. Let's only draft 2 tight ends. So let's make sure we have a quality tight end with our second guy here, and let's grab Tyler Higbee. Okay, let's scroll this down. Kyle says, can we do another draft? Okay, we've had about 2,600 views on this live stream. What do you think is a fair mark to ask for in terms of firing up a 3rd draft today? You tell me. You tell me. Okay, so Tyler Algier goes pick 159. Darrell Williams, 160. Cheeky Hobson says 325. It's pretty funny, my man. Okay, so Darrell Williams right after. I don't even know what we want. We are going to draft 6 running backs here because it's cumulative scoring. I was literally, y'all are guessing. I was going to guess like 3. I was going to guess, say like 500, to be honest. Okay, how about this? We get 450 likes in the live stream. We'll fire up another one after this one. Jordan says, Jordan 30, how do you like my first draft with you? Okay, let's go through and let's check out Jordan's draft here. Okay, so Jordan is drafting at... Okay, I'm sorry, Jordan. I don't see you here. Am I blind? Okay, let me... Jordan 30. Are you Jordan H? Let's look at Jordan H's draft. I'm assuming that is what you meant. So here you have Joe Mixon, DeAndre Swift, James Conner starting with the first 3 rounds at running back. Deontay Johnson loading up on a bunch of wide receiver targets, getting Jalen Hurts. Elijah Moore, pretty good value here. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I was looking at it as if it was a 7th round selection. Elijah Moore is fine here, but it's not nothing. It's not anything to get too excited about. Hunter Renfrow, Hawkinson, Olave, Christian Watson, Damian Pierce, Jahan Dotson. What I would say with this team is I think this would be a fine team if you were looking at that tournament style where 100%, this team has upside near the end of the season. I just think with cumulative scoring, which I will admit I am not an expert in. I am used to playing leagues that have a fantasy football tournament at the very end of the season. I mean, not tournament, I apologize. A fantasy football playoff bracket at the very end of the season. That's what I'm used to. I'm not an expert in cumulative scoring, but just based on how I would go ahead and I would think through the game, I would say with the amount of rookies that you drafted here, it does look pretty tough. I mean, you have Tyler Algier, that's a rookie. John Dotson, rookie. Damian Pierce, that's a rookie. Christian Watson, a rookie. Chris Olave, a rookie. Took a total of 5 rookies in this draft, and we are through the first 14 rounds. I don't necessarily think that's something you need to worry about too much in a regular draft because you can get by for the beginning portion of the season. And if, say, you have a Christian Watson breaking out in week 7, a Chris Olave breaking out in week 6, then hell, all of a sudden you're in a fantastic spot for that upside at the end of the season. But I don't necessarily know if you were going to be able to get through the first 6 weeks and then be able to boat race everybody else through the second half of the season with this team. Okay. Nick says, happy to finally make one of these live drafts. Been following your vids for a year now and love the newer content. I don't even play best ball, but I love your info. Thank you, my man, of course, for coming out, supporting the channel. I really do appreciate it. And if you really enjoy our content, the number one way you couldn't support this channel, even if you don't play best ball, give it a shot. $10. You're going to get our rankings. You're going to get a 130-page draft guide with our 2022 Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide. It supports the channel. I promise you. $10, my man. Link in the description. Promo code FLOCK. Okay. Josh asking us to check out his draft. He's at the 101. Okay, we are going to do that right after this. Okay, I actually like a couple of the selections here. I think we got right outside a tier that we can be excited about. These 7 receivers I'm probably done with. Hamler off the board, good. I don't even think we were considering Hamler. We're going to go ahead. We're going to take J.D. McKissic, pick 179. Ooh, yeah, I really like what we're going to be able to get here at the turn. Okay, Dean James on the clock. They only have one tight end. Their tight end is Darren Waller. So if you go Darren Waller, obviously you're not necessarily planning on grabbing 3 of these guys. But with cumulative scoring, when we're in the 16th round, I don't know if it'd be that bad. I'm not a massive fan of this team. It's not like this team reached on too many players. Just a lot of these guys aren't my guys. Like, I'm not really drafting Penny very often. I'm not drafting Damian Harris very often. Let's go ahead. Let's draft Jared Goff. We have we have DJ Chark on this team. Obviously, we have McKissic as well, but JD McKissic's not influencing our selection on Jared Goff here. I think Goff's going to be a fine quarterback too. And given the fact this is not a best ball format, this is not a tournament best ball format, we probably will be grabbing a 3rd quarterback. But let me show off the strap board and scroll back up, and we are going to be looking at the 101. Okay, so let's look at the 101. Jonathan Taylor to start us off. Nick Chubb, pick 2. David Montgomery in the 5th. Okay, so this is an interesting build. You have the Ole Miss wide receivers in A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf, 3 and 4. I really don't like the Joe Burrow selection. Like, if we're looking at Burrow, I wrote this up in our draft guide. Yes, he has the best upgrade at the offensive line in the NFL. 100%, you cannot deny that. And on top of it, there's hidden upside in Cincinnati. If somehow, some way, you end up seeing the Cincinnati Bengals with this upgraded offensive line decide to push the pace of play. This was a very slow offense overall last year, and we could see the volume bumped up if they push the pace of play this upcoming season. But still, to take Burrow at 72, where did Stafford go? Stafford went way too early, but usually you can get Stafford, say, at the 8-9 turn. I personally am off on Burrow here unless I draft T. Higgins, unless I draft Jamar Chase. But beyond that, London, Lockett, Goddard, Patrick, all fine. Rojo, Darrell Henderson, Avante Parker, Noah Fant, Mac Jones. I'd say I'd probably go 3 tight ends and I'd probably go 3 quarterbacks if I were you. But outside of that, I like the draft outside of Burrow. And I understand that, yes, Burrow is definitely an elite real-life NFL quarterback. He is going to be. But it does come down to rushing upside, in my opinion, mattering so much to access that truly elite level ceiling. A truly elite level ceiling. Louise says, so in best ball, is the entire squad you draft points getting counted, even the non-starters? No, so how best ball works is you have your starting lineup. You have your 1 quarterback, your 2 running backs, your 3 receivers, your tight end, and your flex. But instead of you submitting your starting lineup before every Thursday, you don't touch your team throughout the season. Of course, I'm a sicko, so I'm probably going to be bouncing league to league, seeing how my teams are doing. But you don't have to do that. You could draft it and then never think about it again. You're, instead of setting your starting lineup at the beginning of the week, it's automatically going to be done for you at the end of the week with your highest scoring players among all positions. So that's why someone like DJ Chark's going to be valuable here at pick 155, because I don't have to predict when DJ Chark has his random blow-up week. Because when it happens, hell, he's going to be in our starting lineup. And when it doesn't, he's going to be on our bench, so it's not the end of the world. Okay. So AJ Green goes pick 193. AJ Green, another example of a player that I'm not excited about drafting in the tournament, but in these drafts in particular, I'm completely fine with. I'm not excited about drafting him in the tournament, but if you're going to be looking at these cumulative scoring drafts, I think AJ Green is actually a pretty good bet. Okay, so Raheem Mostert goes at 194. Golf for Life says, what are your thoughts on Saquon Barkley, Mason? We talked about Saquon Barkley like a month ago in our must draft early running back video. We talked about Saquon Barkley whenever he was going at the 2-3 turn. Saquon Barkley now, if you pull this up, is going at the beginning of the second. I think Barkley is appropriately priced now. I thought he was an absurd value previously. But Derek coming out says, how's my draft looking? Of course, Derek, thank you so much for always drafting in these. I'm assuming, Derek, you're going to be DSR here. So let's go through and let's check this out. Eckler at 6. Evans, as we already said, love this Mike Evans selection, especially in this format. Kyle Pitts, I'm taking Kyle Pitts here, regardless of if it's cumulative scoring or if it's going to be a tournament. McLaurin, pick 43, I love. Lamar, 54, I love. Mitchell, 67, I really like. I am personally not a massive fan of Russell Wilson at 78. Very similar to what we were speaking on with Bro now, and similar with Tom Brady and Matthew Stafford. At this price point, I'm not a massive fan of grabbing these quarterbacks that don't have that rushing upside. I probably would have preferred grabbing someone like Clyde Edwards-Helaire here at pick 78 and then getting another quarterback or potentially a pair of quarterbacks a little bit later on. That's my personal preference. Kirk, 91. Edmonds, pick 115. Very similar to Mike Evans. I think some of the best picks in the draft. Jarvis, Tolbert, Corey Davis, Albert O. I like the Albert O stack with Russell Wilson. Mark Ingram. I like Mark Ingram in cumulative scoring. Yeah, I really like the team, my man. I probably better than my team. Okay. Well, let's go ahead. Let's find this next pick. I think we are going to take a third quarterback. Let's go ahead. Let's just do it now. Let's take Davis Mills. I would not do this if it was not going to be cumulative scoring, as we've talked about so much. And I know it's annoying hearing me talk about it so much, but it is truly very, very important. And then after this, we're probably going to grab a running back. Okay. Dean James on the clock. See what, if they would go with the running back, who would they take? I know you've had positive reports coming out of Cincinnati about Chris Evans. I'm not drafting Evans. He goes to Son Haskins. That was going to be the guy that I ended up drafting. Now I don't even know if we draft a running back because I'm not excited about any of those players. John Mechie, Odell Beckham Jr. are going to miss the beginning of the season. Oh, dear God. What am I supposed to do here now? Kenyon Drake off the board. F it. We'll take Zamir White. Yes, we go Josh Jacobs. I don't care. We're calling it a day. But thank you, of course, for everybody coming out and hanging out with us in this live stream. As I say every single night, because I truly do mean it. And I really want you to understand it. I appreciate you. I really hope you have a great night. I really hope you have a great day. I'm going to continue to do this every single day because it's literally the most fun thing I could ever do. I appreciate you again. And I will see you with the draft tomorrow.